Welcome to Our Soul Whisper with Cathi Belmont and co-host Dr. Pat, a sacred space for self-discovery, healing, and transformation. At the heart of Our Soul Whisper is the sacred truth. When we pause and listen inward, the soul always speaks. This show offers a safe, empowering space where those whispers are heard, honored, and lovingly guided into full expression. Each episode invites you to be curious about yourself and the reality you're in, while gently reminding you that you are exactly where you need to be. Let today's message settle in your heart. Maybe even journal about it. And if something resonates, peace, clarity, or insight, pass it along to someone whose soul might be calling for the same. Keep listening inward. Your soul knows the way. Our Soul Whisper starts now. Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Pat. Thank you. This is Our Soul Whisper. This is Cathi Belmont show. And I don't know if you all know this, but we did something a number of years ago, and it's related to our topic today. Today, we're going to talk about the flow of yes, moving with inspired action. And Cathy's going to walk us through this in only the way that she can, because part of our journeys is just holding on to that, just holding on to the energy of that. And we see it everywhere. So let me just put this out there. This show is called Our Soul Whisper. However, this topic and the whisper affects all areas of our life. If you would have told the women's basketball team, Indiana Fever, and last night's Seattle Storm that they were going to lose, they wouldn't have believed you, because they were in the flow of yes. Cathi was in the flow of yes when she said yes to this. I'm in the flow of yes every minute as we expand and grow. But today, get ready to understand what that truly means. Cathi, what a great topic, because it isn't just about the show. You said yes to coaching. You said yes to creating Our Soul Whisper. You said yes to coming out in the world. You said yes to doing this show. But there's a flow to it, and that's what you're going to tackle today, right?
Exactly. And thank you for that, Dr. Pat. I found this wonderful quote that really encapsulates what our episode's going to be about. And I'm so grateful to Eckhart Tolle for this. And, he says, with awareness, there comes choice. And so you're able to say, I allow this moment to be as it is. And then suddenly, before where there was irritation, there's now a sense of aliveness and peace. And out of that comes right action. So beautiful introduction to what we're going to talk about today. And it's really, what's that fuel behind your actions?
Yeah.
Is it this beautiful, graceful unfolding that just seems to flow with ease and grace? And do you feel like or is it this grasp for control?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you were going to do the C word today.
Yeah.
That's a killer.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for 1 second.
Sure.
The grasp for control. Let's talk about that, because it has an energy just when you say the word, Cathi, right?
Yeah.
But there's some things that we can control and some things we can't. The Serenity Prayer is one of the greatest, I believe, one of the greatest prayers on the planet to help people move through the quagmire of things you can change and things you can't. So take us on this journey about what does fuel our actions.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge too that word control. There's even when I say it, there's even a tenseness in my body as I say that. And so, yeah, I appreciate that. And as I start out, I really want to look at and remember and remind us all, what does inspire mean? What does that word inspiration mean? And it comes from, going back to my high school Latin days, it comes from inspirare. It means to breathe into. How often are we when we try to ground ourselves, how often is it go to your breath, go to your breath? So simple, right? And so it also, inspiration also means to infuse courage and motivation. And so when we act from this awareness and this openness, there's a lightness in our steps. We're able to be in that present moment. There's this gentle pull towards something, this gentle pull forward.
Yeah. Inspire is the first word of our 4-word tagline for the network. It always has been. And, probably because for me, without that energy of inspiration, I don't know if I would have made it in life. I just don't know. But the way you're talking about it here today, it gives us the fuel to build confidence, to even begin to contemplate the word yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's that openness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being aware of where it's coming from, being really looking at ourselves and being honest. Okay, if I'm gonna when I make this decision, when I respond to this email, what is it? What's driving that? And to really look at that, because that can just create. I have a little story later that's going to show that
Cool.
beautifully. So I want to look at too coming from fear. Fear. I was always like to go back to the basics and the good old Webster's dictionary, which I still have, by the way, in book form. It's a sudden danger and calamity. It's these actions are fueled by self-preservation and need for approval, wanting to look good. It's that control word again. We're doubting. It's a feeling of heaviness, and it's like we're pushing towards resistance. There's a resistance there.
Yeah.
So I love to paint, and I was asked to paint a invitation for a company holiday party. And so I was on a time constraint anyway. So I got up one Saturday morning and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I got to get it done. And there was, a bit of ego in there because I wanted it to look good and I wanted everybody to say what a great painting it was. And so I started off painting with that energy. And things were not coming together. I started my background colors were not flowing. My brush strokes were tight and stiff. And I said, okay, this isn't working. So I go outside and I just ask for some clarity. And so I'm sitting on my front stoop, and what comes to me is just allow the painting to unfold. And there was this like, whew, okay. So I go back inside, I get a new canvas, and I start my background. Beautiful. I stepped away, did some dishes, came back and did the next part, did my background trees, did some laundry, came back. And before I knew it, not only did I have a clean house, I had a beautiful painting that really represented where I was coming from. And this was years ago that I did that. And I think about it even as I was thinking about this episode today and how it was such a direct translation between how I was feeling and what went on the canvas. Look at that in life. What colors are we painting? Do we like the colors? Well, it's up to us. We can change them. So it was just a beautiful way to exemplify the difference between where it's coming from. And so
Yeah.
in my work, I do this with clients. We work together all the time to just see what's in front of us, releasing that energy that's not allowing that awareness to come through, that awareness for that serenity and that inspired action to come through.
Robert Redford just passed, and I have been a fan or follower of Robert Redford for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. And I watched his life journey, which was against the grain, kind of like us, was really against the grain. And, I watched what he had to do to create Sundance, to really create a new narrative. But all those things you've just talked about, when you watch somebody go through it and struggle with the question of yes, but then come out on the other side, just like your beautiful story of the painting. I mean, how beautiful is that to be able to do that? because painting for somebody in the public, that takes a big yes, like with all capital letters, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And it's there's a vulnerability in that too, and it's really being willing to be honest and say, where is this coming from? Because it's going to show up. It's going to show up in the colors that you paint.
Yeah. And it
So,
shows up in our everyday life, doesn't it? I mean, those of us that are in business, and they see us here, they forget that we're in business, meaning we're entrepreneurs. And
mhm.
the pathway of the entrepreneur requires moment to moment of yeses every day because there's so much to distract us emotionally, especially. Like in my corporate job, it was a very steady, well, my mom told me you never get fired from AT&T, but you do. But now that you're out on your own, this requires you, Cathi, to develop some skills here to really keep your yes in the forefront, doesn't it?
It does, and it's an everyday of looking at what's in front of me. It's that constant wanting to be aware. I was another little story. I was actually getting ready today, and I was feeling not listened to, and I thought, okay, what's up with that? And so there was a part of me that was, I allowed her to have her voice. And as soon as I did that, I felt this spark of anger and then it went away. And, it's just looking at those. It can come up in you bring up work, it can come up in our calendars. It can come up with those cancellations that come up. How do we want to look at that? Do we want to look at it as an opportunity? you know, um, Maybe it was life clearing that space for us to say, you need some self-care today. You've been working hard all week. So it's how do we want to look at that? And it's allowing ourselves to give ourselves that voice as well. So we can clear that energy so we can get to that awareness. I mean, when we get to that openness, that's where that inspired action can come in. But if we don't create that space, it's not getting through. It's all around us, but we're blocking it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really just having that openness and awareness. It sounds so simple, and I know in practice it's not that easy. But if we can find those ways and just really going back to ourselves and doing that integration work, it's so important. I do it all the time,
Yeah.
and it's clears the way.
Yeah, but let's talk about what we need to do to prepare ourselves for the willingness to allow our soul to whisper to us and then allow our soul to guide us. Because you have to have both. You have to be able to hear, but then you have to do something.
You do. You do. I mean, it's the listening, and where are we coming from? We kind of look at metaphorically, we want those sunny days, we want everything to be great. But and when we see those dark skies and thunderstorms, we're like, hey, I wasn't expecting this. I'll ask for clarity, and what I'll get is not that sometimes. And I'll wonder, where the heck did that come from? And it's again, I'll say it again, it's that switching that perspective to how do I want to look at this? How do I want to look at this? Well, it's an opportunity for me to see what's blocking. I keep asking, 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 and this is what gets showing up. So it's really looking at what's there. And it's also being open to responding to things differently, things that we've maybe rejected before or not been willing to do. It's be willing to say, I'm going to say yes this time. That person that I usually avoid, I'm going to start up a conversation with them. Or I've never spoken to this person before. Let's get to know. So it's doing something about it. It's listening to that little, hey, go talk to that person. Maybe they just need someone to say hello to them.
Sometimes these are conversations that could be also difficult, and I want to comment on them for a minute because it doesn't change what you just said. If anything, it becomes more important. I had an interaction with someone yesterday, and the entire beginning of the call started out very accusatory. It was, I mean, I listened to this guy with one of our people. I just listened to him just rip me apart and rip the network apart. And, you know, I'm a kid from New York, so it took a lifetime of skill to hang in there and to then ask, how should I respond? Now, I didn't ask that out loud, but I played that over because I needed some insight and guidance.
Mhm.
And sometimes what you get is not what you think. So the first thing that I was told to do is don't let him get away with it. You have to say something that says, you know, let's talk about what did happen. Let's get some facts on the table. But
Mhm.
the hardest thing to do sometimes when you're faced with adversity is to hold on to your yes, isn't it?
You know, it is. And it's looking at, like in that example, Dr. Pat, it can be very hard to get to. And sometimes what there is to do is maybe just not say anything.
Exactly. Yep.
And
And
it could
listen,
be allowing, I know in business, the first thing I learned is allow the customer to speak, allow them to get it out, allow it to out. And at the same time, if we come from that willingness to say, how do I want to respond here? How do I want to come from love? That may be the way you respond, is just to sit and
yeah,
listen. And so
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't look any certain way. We want to come from, put our dukes up. And is that going to help? Well,
No, it doesn't.
probably not.
And it wouldn't have helped yesterday at all. But I will tell you what did help was listening and then asking for guidance from my soul on the questions to ask. See, that's part of the key. Sometimes you're not going to try to correct somebody, but you have to get insight on what the question is, Cathi, even in our day-to-day lives. What's the question? And what I found with that is by asking the right questions, the other party can feel heard. But we have to also do that to ourselves. We have to ask ourselves the right questions.
We do. We do. What's going on? What's going on with ourselves?
That was
You
a really
know?
cool song. I like that song. What's going on? It's a Marvin Gaye song. I love that song. Um, but um, one of the things I want to talk to you about is what you mentioned earlier about the thunder, because sunny days and thunder, they're part of the same coin. You know what I mean? And
I
we
do.
have to be able to navigate both of us, both of them. So let's get a sense, right, from this show and how we can help other people at least take that first step, at least understand we want the bright days. They're not all bright, but what I've learned in the Pacific Northwest, just saying,
Mhm.
find something else to do or or for about 250 days of the year, you're not going to know what to do with yourself, right? I mean, I'm not kidding about that, but that's the same thing you're saying. It's what are you going to do? Are we going to let the thunder shut us down?
Right.
Or can we learn something from the thunder?
It's learning something from the thunder, and it's really not judging that. Like we talked about, when we ask for something and we get something differently, we think we know what we want or what we're going to see, but it's different. And are we going to judge that? Are we going to, I don't want to see it, I don't want to see it. Well, maybe if we allow ourselves to say, well, there's a reason for the rain, clears things away.
Yeah,
Water's such a beautiful thing. And that's what I do in my business. That's when I work with clients, we look at what is there. What are you willing to look at? And are you willing to, there's a peeling back of the layers and seeing what's underneath. And it's those small steps. doesn't have to be a huge jump. I always ask, what do you want out of this session? And a lot of people, that it's recognizing it doesn't take a big jump to really make all the difference. So it's going back to your question, Dr. Pat, it's appreciating those thunderstorms just as much as the sunny skies. We're in a world of duality. We see one and we appreciate the other. I know a lot of people that love the rain, you know.
Yeah, I do too.
So yeah, but it's really it's appreciating both because there's a purpose for both. We may have our preference and opinions, but it's
Mhm.
really realizing there's validity and beauty in
Yeah.
both.
I also want to talk about this for a minute about perspective because you're going to talk about the energy of yes, but it's also perspective. If I talk to, when I first moved out here and Linda saw that it rained, she was looking at rain from what they get in New Jersey.
Mm.
Now, when you live in New Jersey and it rains, you cannot walk out in that rain. You cannot drive in that rain. So when she heard about the weather pattern, her perspective on it was it's the same here. No, it's not the same kind of rain here. We do get some heavy rain, but for the most part, we can get out in the rain. We play sports in the rain. We go on hikes in the rain. We even go camping in the rainforest. So let's talk about how to hold the energy of yes, especially when our internal perspective wants to paint a story to hold us back.
Yeah, it's the energy of yes. It isn't about saying yes to everything. It's what's aligned with our soul. And it's about recognizing when that next step is inspired and when it's not. So and it's willing to, you know, see things going back, seeing things differently. Yeah, the rain's not different. It's, growing up on the East Coast, I know those thunderstorms, and you get those beautiful deluges, out west, not so
Not
much.
so much.
And it's willing to just be open to what is, and just appreciating that and seeing the beauty in that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, my friend told me not too long ago that the Seattle or Western Washington area has the highest per capita purchases of sunglasses.
Mm,
Why is that? Because there is a mindset here about not paying attention so much to that.
hmm.
And, a little bit of, breakthrough, and you wear sunglasses. I wear them all the time. But part of that is this collective change. So let's talk about the next step to be inspired.
If if you're inspired by this episode, this is exactly the kind of work and questioning that I do with my clients. It's getting to that inspired action and seeing what's holding you back from that. And so go to soulwhisper.com or soulwhisper.com and just really let's explore how we
Yeah.
can do this. And it's Dr. Pat's going back to those powerful questions we can ask ourselves. And as a coach, that's what I do with clients to just evoke that awareness.
Yeah, I love that because, you're bringing in, see, Cathi, one of the things you're bringing in is you're bringing the dimension in of the soul being a guidance system. And by introducing that to people and the way you coach people, what you're doing is you're allowing for insight. You're allowing for a conceptualization that may not have existed. And without that conceptualization, not much happens, does it?
It does not. And it's creating that sacred space for the person to find it for themselves. I'm a guide, and I tune in and I'm present and I create that space for that person to feel safe. And when you find those answers on your own, oh my gosh, what a beautiful feeling that is. And you have it forever. Like we've said in past episodes, once you're aware, you can't go back.
No, you can't. Thank you so
You
much for today. And also, again, the website that people can contact you from is oursoulwhisper.com. You're available. You wide range of things you help people with, but especially those people out there that are really in the entrepreneurial space that really want to move forward. but you don't have to be in that space. It's any question in your life that's holding you back, reach out and get Cathy's help. Thank you so much for this, Cathi.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things Cathi said earlier, and I would love all of you to hold on to it, is the word inspire. Look it up. If you don't have a hardcover, look it up online. But one of the other things you said, Cathi, is the energy of yes. Put both of those together and you have 2 words, inspired yes, from Cathi Belmont. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Our Soul Whisper with Cathi and Dr. Pat. Tune in every first and third Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Take a moment now to breathe in and reflect on today's message. If it brought you peace, clarity, or insight, let it settle in your heart and maybe even journal about it. Remember to like and share this episode with someone who's ready to listen within. May our soulful echoes ripple outward, awakening awareness and deep remembrance. If this show touched something within you, share it. Let's create a world where most of us pause, listen inward, and allow our light to shine. Visit OurSoulWhisper.com for more.